Nobody tells you that the financial advice industry profits most when you stay confused. The gap between a low salary and real wealth was never primarily an income problem. It was always a psychology problem dressed in spreadsheet clothing. Machiavelli never wrote about personal finance. That is precisely why his principles cut deeper than anything the financial industry ever published. There is a quiet arithmetic running beneath your financial life that no one bothered to explain. Income is visible. The rules governing what you do with it are not. The wealthy don't earn differently, they think differently about time, about positioning, about which battles are worth fighting and which are engineered to drain you. 9 of those principles were written 500 years ago by a man who understood power more clearly than most people today understand their own bank statements. Machiavelli's foundational insight was this: the greatest obstacle to power is not your enemy, it is your own predictability. Apply that to money. The greatest obstacle to building wealth on a low salary is not the salary, it is the predictable way you respond to it. Principle 1. Stop confusing activity with progress. Most people in financial struggle are extraordinarily busy. They track expenses obsessively, research side hustles constantly, restart budgets every other Monday. None of it compounds. Busyness feels like momentum because the nervous system cannot distinguish between productive effort and exhausting motion. The wealthy bias toward fewer, higher leverage decisions, and then they wait. Patience isn't passive. It is the most aggressive financial strategy available to someone without capital. Principle 2. Your lifestyle is a negotiation you are already losing. Every time income rises slightly, spending absorbs it before you can redirect it. This is not weakness, this is biology. The brain reads more income as a signal that the threat level has dropped and it relaxes. Relaxation, economically, costs money. The discipline the wealthy exercise around lifestyle isn't about deprivation. It is about refusing to let comfort renegotiate their financial strategy. Enjoyment is not the enemy. Letting enjoyment run the numbers is. Principle 3. You are being taxed by your own social environment. This is the one most people feel but never name. The dinner you couldn't quite afford. The holiday you went on because not going would have required an explanation. The purchase that was less about wanting something and more about not wanting to appear like you couldn't. Your social circle carries an invisible price floor, and if you're earning below it, you are subsidizing belonging with money you don't have. The people who escape this pattern don't withdraw from the world. They simply stop letting other people's spending set the terms of their own financial life. That distinction is smaller than it sounds and more expensive than you think. Principle 4. Scarcity thinking is not your fault, but it remains your problem. When money is consistently tight, the brain narrows, locks onto immediate threat, and loses access to the long-range thinking that creates financial change. Research in cognitive psychology documents this directly. Financial scarcity consumes the same mental bandwidth otherwise used for planning, self-regulation, and decision quality. This is not a character flaw. It is a resource constraint. Recognizing it means you can start compensating deliberately, carving out mental space to think about the future, even when the present is loud. Stop. Something needs to be said here that most financial content will not say. You already know the information isn't the problem. You have known that for a while. The budgets, the calculators, the advice columns, you have consumed enough of it to understand, intellectually, what should be happening. And it still isn't. That gap between knowing and doing is not laziness. It is identity. Somewhere beneath the decisions and the restarts and the quiet frustration is a story about the kind of person you are in relation to money, written early, reinforced constantly, and almost never examined directly. You have been treating a psychology problem like a logistics problem. That is why the logistics keep failing. Principle 5. The asset you are most severely undervaluing is your attention. Not your time, your attention. Time is the container. Attention is what fills it, and what fills it is what gets built. The reason this matters on a low salary is precise. You cannot buy your way out of a bad allocation of focus, but you can think your way out of one. Every hour of attention directed at low-level financial anxiety, passive consumption, or decisions that don't compound is an hour that built nothing. The wealthy protect attention before they protect income, because they understand that where focus goes consistently, resources eventually follow. Principle 6. The financial system was not designed around your exit from it. Banks profit from minimum payments. Subscription models profit from inertia. Insurance products profit from overestimated risk. None of this is conspiracy. It is simply optimization, structured in their favor rather than yours. Machiavelli's clarity about institutions applies without modification. Never assume that a structure designed by others will prioritize your advancement. The people who eventually extract value from these systems share one trait. They stopped experiencing financial products as services and started reading them as contracts written by someone who understood human psychology better than most customers ever would. Principle 7. You have been taught to respect money in a way that makes you afraid to direct it. This is one of the most precise forms of financial control ever constructed. Reverence for money, the sense that it must be accumulated to a certain threshold before it can be deployed meaningfully, keeps the majority of low earners holding cash they are afraid to move while watching it erode. The wealthy do not respect money in that way. They respect what money in motion produces. Static money is not safety. It is slow loss dressed as caution. The shift from hoarding to directing, even small amounts, even imperfectly, is the psychological crossing point that separates people who talk about building wealth from people who quietly do it. Principle 8. You accept the salary you believe you deserve, not the one the market would pay if you negotiated with the precision the situation demands. This is the mechanism most people skip past because examining it closely is uncomfortable. Under-earning is rarely about market conditions. It is about identity, a ceiling installed not by the economy but by a belief about your own replaceability. The person who accepts the first offer avoids the renegotiation conversation or frames asking for more as aggression rather than accuracy is not being humble. They are being expensive. Every year of under-earning at even a modest gap compounds into a number that, written plainly, would be difficult to look at. Principle 9. Wealth is built inside the gap, and that gap is psychological before it is financial. The gap between what you earn and what you direct toward your future. On a low salary, that gap is narrow. That is true, but narrow is not zero. And what you do consistently inside a narrow gap, across years, is how every fortune that was not inherited actually began. Machiavelli's sharpest observation about power applies here without alteration. It is not the size of the resource that determines the outcome. It is the precision of its application. The person who closes this video and changes nothing will blame the salary. The person who closes it and changes the psychology will, in time, change everything else. These are not the same person. The distance between them is not talent, timing, or inheritance. Wealth does not favor the highest earner. It favors the person who finally stopped negotiating with themselves.